Mary, the First of England, better known as Bloody Mary, was she truly the bloodthirsty tyrant legend makes her out to be? Or is there more to this queen than meets the eye? Let's find out. So, why the name Bloody Mary? During her reign, Mary the First earned this chilling nickname due to the persecution of Protestants. Over 280 people were burned at the stake under her orders. But here's the twist, was she really as ruthless as history claims? Or was she simply a queen trying to restore her country to the faith she believed was right?
Before she was Bloody Mary, she was just Mary, a princess born into a world of privilege, power, and, as it would turn out, peril. Born on February 18, 1516, Mary Tudor was the apple of her father's eye. And why wouldn't she be? She was the daughter of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, a union that was meant to secure England's future. Mary was born into a lineage that combined the might of England's Tudor dynasty with the prestigious royal blood of Spain. Her mother, Catherine of Aragon, was the daughter of the Catholic monarchs Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile. Quite the pedigree, don't you think? But despite her royal roots, young Mary's life was far from a fairy tale. Mary's early years were marked by love and adoration, but also by the brewing storm of her parents' increasingly strained marriage. You see, Henry VIII was a king obsessed with securing a male heir, something Catherine couldn't provide, despite several pregnancies. And when Henry's eyes wandered to Anne Boleyn, things took a dramatic turn. Enter Anne Boleyn, the woman who would change Mary's life forever. When Henry decided to divorce Catherine to marry Anne, it wasn't just a scandal, it was the start of a seismic shift in both the Tudor court and the Church of England. And caught in the middle of this political and religious upheaval was Mary, the once beloved princess. As Henry broke away from the Catholic Church to marry Anne, Mary's world crumbled. She was declared illegitimate, stripped of her title as princess, and separated from her mother. Imagine the heartbreak of a young girl, raised in royal splendor, suddenly being cast aside. Talk about a fall from grace. But Mary was no ordinary girl. Despite her circumstances, she clung to her faith with a fervor that would come to define her reign. Her devout Catholicism, instilled by her mother, became the bedrock of her identity, a cornerstone that would later fuel her mission to restore Catholicism in England, no matter the cost. Mary's early life was marked by trials and tribulations, but these hardships only hardened her resolve. Little did anyone know, the once discarded princess would one day rise to power with a vengeance. But the road to the throne was paved with even more challenges. By the time Mary reached adulthood, life had taught her that nothing in the world of royalty comes without a fight. Her childhood was marred by political and religious turmoil, but it was these very challenges that forged her into the woman who would one day reclaim her destiny. And what a wild ride it was to get there. After the death of her father, Henry VIII, the crown passed to her half-brother, Edward VI, a staunch Protestant. For Mary, a devoted Catholic, this was like salt in the wound. Edward's reign was marked by aggressive Protestant reforms, and Mary found herself at odds with the ruling elite, who saw her faith as a threat. Mary refused to abandon her Catholic beliefs, even when pressured by Edward and his advisors. Imagine the tension at court, a Catholic princess in a Protestant kingdom, with powerful nobles watching her every move, waiting for her to slip up. Talk about living life on the edge. When Edward fell gravely ill in 1553, the power struggle for the throne reached a fever pitch. Fearing a Catholic resurgence under Mary, Edward's advisors hatched a plan to install Lady Jane Grey, a Protestant and Edward's cousin, as queen. For 9 days, Jane sat on the throne, but Mary wasn't about to let that slide. Oh no. She had other plans. Displaying the Tudor tenacity she inherited from her father, Mary rallied her supporters in East Anglia. With the common folk backing her and the tides of loyalty shifting, she marched toward London, gathering an army along the way. It was a risky move, after all, this was a Game of Thrones, and the stakes were life or death. But Mary had the ace up her sleeve, the people's support. In a dramatic turn of events, Mary's forces overwhelmed Jane's supporters. Lady Jane Grey, the 9 days queen, was deposed, and Mary triumphantly entered London. At long last, the crown was hers, but not without a heavy price. Her path to the throne had been littered with betrayal, fear, and the threat of death. But Mary had proven herself to be a formidable player in the dangerous game of royal politics. On July 19, 1553, Mary was crowned the first reigning Queen of England, a moment that was as much a personal victory as it was a turning point in English history. But as the saying goes, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Little did the people know, the reign of Mary I would soon become one of the bloodiest in their nation's history. Mary had secured her throne, but now she faced an even greater challenge, holding on to it. With England torn between religious factions, Mary's reign would be defined by her relentless pursuit to restore Catholicism, no matter the cost. With the crown firmly on her head, Mary I was now faced with a daunting task, restoring Catholicism to a kingdom that had veered sharply towards Protestantism. For Mary, this wasn't just a matter of faith, it was her divine mission. And like any true Tudor, she wasn't about to back down, even if it meant taking extreme measures. Enter the Marian persecutions, a period so bloody it would leave a permanent stain on her legacy. Mary's first order of business was to reverse the Protestant reforms that had taken hold during her father's and brother's reigns. To her, these reforms were heretical, a direct affront to the true faith. She was determined to cleanse England of this Protestant poison and bring her people back to the Catholic Church. But this was no easy task. Protestantism had taken root, and many were unwilling to abandon their new beliefs. In 1554, Mary convinced Parliament to reinstate the old heresy laws, which made it illegal to preach Protestantism or to deny Catholic doctrine. And thus began a reign of terror that would see hundreds of men, women, and even children tried for heresy. Those who refused to recant their Protestant faith were condemned to death by burning at the stake. Imagine, if you will, the chilling sight of these public burnings, flames roaring, the air thick with smoke, and the crowd watching in a mix of horror and morbid curiosity. Talk about a hot time in the old town tonight. But all jokes aside, these executions were a gruesome reality for the nearly 300 Protestants who met their fiery fate under Mary's orders. Among the most famous victims were Thomas Cranmer, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, and Bishops Hugh Latimer and Nicholas Ridley. These men were pillars of the Protestant Reformation in England, and their deaths sent shockwaves throughout the kingdom. Latimer's final words to Ridley as they were being burned, "Be of good comfort, Master Ridley, and play the man, we shall this day light such a candle, by God's grace, in England, as I trust shall never be put out," became a rallying cry for Protestants long after Mary's reign. Mary's campaign was relentless, and the fires of persecution spread across England. From London to Oxford, the burnings became a grim spectacle, a powerful, albeit brutal, message that Mary would stop at nothing to restore her kingdom to the Catholic fold. And so, the name Bloody Mary was born, not from folklore or legend, but from the blood of her own subjects. For Mary, these actions were a necessary evil, a divine duty to save her people's souls. But for those who suffered under her rule, it was tyranny at its most terrifying. Mary's efforts to restore Catholicism may have been ruthless, but they were not without consequence. As the flames of persecution burned, so too did the seeds of rebellion and resistance. Mary I may have worn the crown, but the weight of her reign would be felt long after her death. For all her fervent efforts to restore Catholicism, Mary's legacy turned out to be a double-edged sword, one that would shape the future of England in ways she could never have imagined. So, what was the lasting impact of a queen who earned the nickname Bloody Mary? Let's dive in. When Mary died in 1558, her half-sister Elizabeth I ascended to the throne, ushering in a new era. Mary's reign, marked by religious persecution and political turmoil, left a deeply divided England, a country teetering on the edge of chaos. But ironically, it was Mary's own actions that paved the way for Elizabeth's Protestant Golden Age. Elizabeth wasted no time in undoing her sister's work. She reinstated Protestantism as the state religion, and with it, the Church of England regained its dominance. The bloody memory of Mary's persecutions fueled a deep-seated distrust of Catholicism, which lingered in England for centuries. It's a bit of tragic irony, really. Mary's efforts to revive the old faith ended up cementing the new one. Elizabeth's reign also saw the passing of the Act of Supremacy and the Elizabethan religious settlement, which solidified the Protestant Church's power. The specter of Mary's reign loomed large over these decisions, as Elizabeth was keenly aware of the dangers of religious division. In a way, Mary's legacy became a cautionary tale, one that Elizabeth used to unify her kingdom under a single, Protestant banner. And then there's the legacy of Bloody Mary. No, not the cocktail, though some might argue a stiff drink is needed after hearing about her reign. The name Bloody Mary has become synonymous with tyranny and religious fanaticism, a haunting figure in both history books and pop culture. But is this the whole story? Perhaps not. It's easy to paint Mary as a villain, but the truth is more complex. She was a queen driven by a deep sense of duty to her faith and her country. Her methods were extreme, yes, but they were also born out of a desperate need to right what she saw as the wrongs of her predecessors. In her mind, she wasn't a tyrant, she was a savior, trying to bring her people back to the true faith. Yet, Mary's harsh methods only deepened the divisions she sought to heal. Her reign highlighted the dangers of religious intolerance, and in the long run, it contributed to England's eventual path toward greater religious tolerance, albeit slowly and painfully. In the grand tapestry of history, Mary's legacy is a stark reminder of the cost of fanaticism and the enduring power of religious belief. Mary I was buried at Westminster Abbey, her tomb bearing the simple inscription, Mary, the first queen regnant of this land. Despite the bloodshed and controversy, Mary left an indelible mark on English history. She was the first woman to rule England in her own right, a trailblazer, albeit one whose path was soaked in blood. And while her reign may be remembered for its darkness, it also set the stage for the light that would follow. But the story doesn't end here. Stay tuned as we explore the reign of Elizabeth I, the queen who would rise from the shadow of Bloody Mary to become one of England's most celebrated monarchs. Trust us, you won't want to miss it.